Welcome to this executive training on stress management. If you have been feeling exhausted, frustrated, unmotivated to work, and kind of stuck in a low energy and stress cycle, this training is going to give you the blueprint to breaking out of that cycle. If you don't know me, my name is Veronica. I'm the founder of Inu. I have been in the space of burnout and high performance for the last 7 years. I've been working with executives and teams from companies like Hubspot, Goldman Sachs, Microsoft, World Economic Forum. You guys probably noticed that I am on the train, and the reason for this is that I actually originally planned to make this video in a perfectly polished, styled studio to give you this sense of serenity, but then I thought that, wait a minute, life is on the move. Life is chaotic. Life is full of things that are happening, and so I wanted to keep it real, and that's the reason why I'm doing this video on the train. And you might also see some really beautiful landscapes. Maybe in the background I will also point it to it because I'm going to be passing some beautiful mountains. So let's get into it. What we're going to do today, I am going to share with you 3 powerful frameworks that will help you navigate pressure, work environments, and high intensity cultures while still feeling energized instead of drained, while maintaining your energy that you need to perform high and make those important decisions, solve those big problems. So what we're going to do today, we're going to look at 5 stages of burnout. We are going to look at the external triggers and also the internal patterns that lead to burnout. And I'm going to give you the equation on flow state. And the reason why we go so heavy on the burnout within the topic of stress management is because without understanding what burnout is and how its cycles work, we can't ever get out of the cycle of the stress and the low energy that we're feeling. Sounds good? Okay, so let's get started. So first of all, I want to start with perhaps just kind of sharing something unusual with you. A lot of people do not realize when it comes to the kind of cycle of burnout and what burnout really is, that burnout actually starts in a very, very positive way. It starts in the so-called honeymoon phase, just like everything else in life, right? So the honeymoon phase is essentially the time, it's usually when we get into a new position, we get a new job, or we start a new project, or we start a new business. It's usually a start of something new, something fresh, something exciting. And what we do during this time is we take on lots of new tasks, lots of new responsibilities, and with that, we're wanting to learn everything, and we're feeling high job satisfaction. We're feeling ready to take on this responsibility. Any kind of stress that is going on around us is perceived as positive. It's driving us, it's motivating us, it's challenging us, and we feel like we're on the top of the world, just really seamlessly navigating it all. So there is this sense that we want to prove ourselves, we want to conquer these challenges that are there, and lots of creativity, lots of ideas are going on. So that's honeymoon. If you're in the honeymoon phase, I applaud you, I celebrate you. Please still watch this training, is very important, but it's really, really great that this is how you're feeling right now. And you probably don't need as much support, but I do want to emphasize that this information is really important, and it's just so important to be aware of this, not just for yourself, but everyone else around you as well. So let's move on to the time when things start getting a little bit more intense, a little bit more hectic. So what happens when we continue in the honeymoon phase and we do not take precautions to manage our energy? We start perceiving stress as for what it is, as something that is bringing us pressure, bringing that intensity into our life, and it's starting to really impact us. So typical things that we experience is our blood pressure might increase. We have heart palpitations. The stress is really getting to us, and the stage is called onset of stress. So it's really about that shift from the stress being something positive to something that's starting to have a negative impact on us. We are perhaps finding it harder to focus. We're becoming a little bit irritable. We're starting to see some maybe disruption of sleep patterns, maybe starting to already feel the fatigue in terms of our bodies, and forgetfulness, and really starting to feel like, hey, there is a lot coming at me and I am not doing as well when it comes to managing it, and my body is starting to show some signs, and I am starting to feel a lot of tension within. And this might be the time when we're still kind of, in the flow of like, hey, this is my job and it's stressful and I have so much to juggle. We start kind of deprioritizing social interactions and our hobbies. So this leap, especially for you guys who are in the honeymoon phase, if you're starting to see yourself approach the onset of stress and you are perhaps unconsciously starting to reduce the things that you have been doing for yourself that are really important for you to keep that balance, taking breaks, this is really important to notice. That's why I wanted you to continue watching this video. Beautiful. All right, so let's move on to the third phase of burnout, which is chronic stress. So what happens if we continue in this cycle, in this rhythm? The stress really, really, really starts impacting us. And there are things that we perhaps can't even impact anymore. We start being late for work. We start kind of getting more ill, and our immunity typically goes down, and whatever is kind of illness or virus is around us is impacting us more. Our body is not so capable to fight it off. We can see disruptions when it comes to our digestion. Any kind of illnesses or pains are coming to the surface, and they are becoming chronic. Headaches, things like back pain, for example, pain in our legs, pain in our feet. So this is all associated as physical symptoms with the chronic stress, when there is really a lot of tension and stress and pressure accumulated in the body. We've been in this kind of like fighting mode for a while, and our body is just really starting to feel it all. On the mental level, on the emotional level, we may, as well as the irritability, we might start feeling apathic, and we might start feeling kind of cynical, and just kind of starting feeling disconnected, because it's really hard to maintain that level of constant engagement. I generally find a lot of people who are watching our content to be somewhere around this phase of chronic stress, and to be perfectly honest with you, most of our population probably is, because that's just the sheer amount of things that are kind of out there every single day. And so if we don't proactively manage how these things are impacting us, we will find ourselves under this constant avalanche of things that are causing us stress. So just to give you some awareness around this is the phase of chronic stress. The next one is the actual burnout. So if we do not do anything about the amount of stress that we have been experiencing, we start really feeling the heaviness of, we have been going like this for a while and we simply can't anymore. So in the burnout phase, all of the symptoms from the chronic stress, they do intensify. Plus, we start really kind of wishing we wouldn't have to be here. We kind of want to escape it all. We don't want to deal with things. Some people choose to kind of navigate these things already in the chronic stress phase with alcohol, with medication, trying to take holidays, for example. The way some people navigate burnout is to go hard and be in this kind of like cycle of just chronic exhaustion and stress, and then take a month sabbatical, and then they kind of go like, oh, I need to leave this job that was toxic, I'm going to go into another one, and then they repeat the cycle. So watch out for these things if this sounds familiar to you. And all the symptoms are just kind of like get to the stage of being chronic. So whether it's headaches, migraines, pains, any kind of stomach problems, they complete kind of like the hormonal structure of our system completely alters, because we've been overproducing cortisol and adrenaline, and these hormones are, they're not supposed to be produced on a daily basis permanently like they are when we are under constant stress. So it's really starting to impact our organs. The hormonal changes in our body are affecting our sex appetite. They are affecting our mood, even kind of like there is this idea of like our personality almost alters with this. So that's what happens when we're in the burnout phase. And the last phase is habitual burnout. Habitual burnout is kind of making this into your new normal and just living perpetually in the burnout. It's basically, it comes with chronic sadness, chronic depression, kind of just being in this phase for a very long time. And as I said, also perhaps it could be, burnout as a lifestyle where you're just repeating the cycle, and the honeymoon phase is almost shortened. It really just takes a little bit, and then you get into that stress. You're in a constant struggle. So you guys, I want to kind of like reflect and just give you space after you've heard all of this. Have a think for yourself. Where on this burnout continuum are you? Which phase are you finding yourself in? What sounds familiar? And what might have been potentially causing you to get into this stage where you are? Just kind of see if there's any answers that you can already find for yourself. I am passing some beautiful places, so I need to show this to you right now. There's some mountains in the background and a beautiful lake. I told you guys this would have some benefits of not being in that beautiful studio, so here we go. But let me continue. Okay, I'm just gonna get some water and let's continue. Second framework that I want to share with you is really to help you, with that question that I just asked. It's about helping you figure out what is causing the burnout. And we're going to look at both external kind of environmental factors as well as your very own thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors. So let's dive right into it. First of all, let's look at the external. So when it comes to burnout, I am borrowing this from a research that's been done for, a couple of decades already, and this is pretty well established when it comes to work environments and the environments that have an impact on us and the amount of stress that we experience at work. There are a couple of factors. So I'm just going to take you through this. The next framework we're going to look at, which is the internal patterns, that comes from our proprietary research that we have done through many years of working with clients, and this is not available anywhere on the internet. You won't find this anywhere, so stick to this. Okay, so the external patterns are values mismatch, which, I'm just going to go through this real quick because you probably kind of sense what these things mean. Values mismatch basically means when your personal values are not in alignment with the values of your environment. That could be your management, your boss, it could be your co-founder, it could be people within the company that you're working with, even kind of culturally, if there are certain behaviors that are happening that are driven by certain values that are not really in accordance with yours. So values mismatch can be a massive driver of burnout. Next one is skills and job mismatch. What this really means is that the skills that you have are either greater than your job, and you're getting to the points of like not feeling challenged, not feeling like you're learning, not feeling, even like you're being rewarded enough and stimulated enough. You might be bored, or your skills are not really enough for the job, for the challenges that you are facing in your role, which can cause a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. There could also be a situation where you perhaps want to be growing in a certain direction and you want to develop your skills in a certain way, but your job is kind of asking you to just use a part of your skill set, or it's a skill set that you were happy to use some time ago, but you don't want to be doing that anymore. So this is very important to recognize if you're experiencing this. The next one is excessive workload, which I think I don't have to say much about. Is basically when the amount of work that you're doing feels like it's never enough, and there is always more work kind of raining on you, and there is always more to do, and it's just this hectic pace of workload that's going on in your workplace. This is also very common for entrepreneurs and for founders, for people who have their own businesses. Okay, so the next one is lack of control. Lack of control is it can mean lots of different things. In the workplace, there's in a workplace, we're a part of some sort of a social kind of mechanism where we play by certain rules, and a lot of people often feel that they kind of would like to have a say in how the rules are shaped that are impacting them on a day-to-day basis, but they don't really have much say in that. And like to put this in very simple terms, this can be the way that you do your work, the time when you work, the place where you work. It can be just very kind of physical things like that, but it could also be things that relate to processes or social agreements that are very kind of attached to the values as well. It's just not really having control over the things that are really related to what you're doing. And it can perhaps be even like lots of work kind of being altered, lots of changes, and you not having a say, and you just needing to do those things. That's not a good feeling for sure. The next one is lack of reward and recognition. So for this one, what we're looking at is it can be a reward that simply isn't aligned with how you like to be rewarded, and it may feel like you're not really being seen. You perhaps have been asking for a raise for a while and it's just not there, or you would like to step up and you are not really being given that opportunity. You are not being seen for the work that you're doing. So it can be the amount of reward and recognition as well as the type of reward and recognition that's important for you. And with that also comes the treatment and the kind of like whether there is a fairness in the treatment and a lack of treatment that we consider important for us. And when it comes to the recognition, this is the treatment kind of comes in as a we always look at the people around us in the workplace and want to make sure that we are on equal terms, that we have equal opportunities. And so this is a big topic since we are in this kind of dynamic environment, to make sure that someone isn't kind of deprioritized or being undermined in some ways. And so it's a very important feeling for us to know that, hey, we're all here together and we're being treated equally regardless of what we look like, who we are, etc. And the last one is a lack of positive social connection. Meaningful connections are so important to us. I think we all understand this, thanks to the last couple of years. Having a connection human to human in the workplace is critical. It's critical. There is also studies that prove that people who have their best friend at work or really good relationships with people at work are less likely to leave their jobs. It really does matter to us a lot. So if you have been feeling lack of positive social connection with people, there is no surprise that you're kind of thinking of, you're not feeling really that well, you're feeling down, and you may be thinking of changing jobs or making some adjustments. Okay, beautiful. So that's when it comes to the external environment. I now want to shift to the things that, speaking of control, are completely within our control. And I also, want to claim that the external factors are also, there is a massive amount of control we have over those. We can have conversations, and sometimes it's very difficult to have those conversations, but this is all going to now make sense, because as we talk about these internal patterns, you're going to see why perhaps some of the external factors are such a roadblock for you, because there are internal kind of ways of thinking and feeling that are literally preventing us from acting differently. So that's what I want to dive into now. All right, so this first one might seem a little bit weird. I still haven't found an appropriate label for it that would kind of put it in a positive spin, but maybe that's actually not the idea. It's something that I call low self-worth, and in other kind of terms that maybe will resonate a bit more is really simply needing to prove oneself, which I believe it totally comes from the culture, the society that we live in, where there is this constant need to to buy the next product, to be better, to do this thing, to be loved more, to prove ourselves to others, to get this recognition, to get this certificate, to be seen, as a better human. And that really puts us in a tricky scenario, because that validation of our worth comes from the outside. And what we do, we internalize this, and we have that voice in our head that says, you can't be lazy, you have to do this, you have to prove yourself, you have to take on this next task, you have to take this meeting even though it's outside of working hours, because you may lose your job. We attach stories to this like that. So needing to prove oneself or low self-worth basically means that we think of ourselves as a subject that is a factor of, our worth is a factor of what we do and how much we do, rather than that we already are worthy, we already are good enough, and everything else is extra. So that's low self-worth. The next one is perfectionism. Perfectionism, I think, doesn't need very much description or explanation, so I'm just going to move on to the next. Perfectionism is something that we kind of connect with unrelenting standards as well. It's simply when nothing is good enough, and we keep driving ourselves to points of absolute exhaustion and utter madness, because we feel like we're not quite there yet ever, and we have really high standards for ourselves and others. There are healthy versions of it, but also very unhealthy. So people pleasing is a pattern. These next few patterns that I am going to share with you are very similar in the sense that they kind of touch on the same maybe behaviors or ways that they are manifest, but we can take them apart and really see what's behind it. So people pleasing basically means that we do prioritize other people's work, other people's happiness, other people's priorities above ourselves, and we don't want to see other people upset. So we would go against ourselves. We would cross our own boundaries. We would get into situations that are not ideal for us. We would literally compromise or sabotage ourselves in order to please others. This comes, and all of these internal patterns, by the way, come usually from childhood, as they always do. They get really deeply embedded in us, and there can be even a simple thing like, your parents told you, hey, do this, mommy will be proud of you, or if you don't this, daddy will be angry or sad, and that starts really creating these neural pathways in our minds that we have to please others and do things regardless. So it's really important that as adults we really reconsider and challenge these beliefs and these ideas around the world around us, because they might not be necessarily serving us, especially like at work. There is no one ever going to tell us that this is enough and we're not going to get more work done, and that there isn't more stuff that we could do. We have to manage that ourselves. There is always, the world is full of things that are always out there, and they may be overwhelming for us. So we have to be the ones who navigate how much are we letting to affect us. And speaking of this, lack of boundaries is really related, and I kind of mentioned it already. It's a common theme, with people pleasing and kind of finding ourselves in situations where we're almost too empathetic. We are struggling to set boundaries, and when they are being crossed, we feel resentful, we feel angry, we feel depleted, we feel exhausted. So we feel like we have abandoned ourselves. And so the reason I said this is because other people crossing our boundaries is really just a result of us crossing our own boundaries. And so it's really important to first be able to identify our own boundaries and then communicate them. In the program, in the work that we do with our clients, we, by the way, take you through all of this material and this information that I'm throwing at you guys, and we help you to integrate all of these into your life and learn how to respond in situations in new ways that serve you more. We really tailor, depending on where you're at, which ones are relevant to you, how can you show up in new ways. So setting boundaries is a huge thing. It's a massive theme. Setting boundaries for someone who's never set them before, who's never had any boundaries, who grew up in a household without boundaries, it's a game changer, and it's not easy to do, I can tell you that. So it does need training and process behind it. And the last one from this kind of like pack of similar patterns is conflict avoidance. Conflict avoidance it comes hand in hand with people pleasing, and feeling a lot of empathy for people. We tend to avoid conflict at all costs because we don't want to upset people. We are perhaps scared of conflict and seeing, being able to manage to handle someone else's reaction, especially if they target it at us. That also comes hand in hand with inability to set boundaries and hold our ground and tell the person in a grounded way hey, I'm not going to take this. This is as far as we can go in this conversation. It's just having an ability to go into conflict in a healthy way, where it actually can be helpful for people. Having the language, another thing that we teach in our course, we're using the so-called nonviolent communication, which has been utilized by Microsoft over the last 10 years, and it's completely shifted their culture. So we're teaching this mechanic also in our course. It's incredible because we're still able to be empathetic. We're still able to have compassion and to be able to help one another and have a really thriving work environment, but without letting the conflict to either get in the way or avoid the conflict altogether and then suppress the problems that are happening. And the last one is taking responsibility for others. So this basically means that we might be either emotionally taking responsibility and literally feeling other people's emotions, or we might be doing this in a physical way, and we might be doing work for other people, and instead of learning how to delegate, how to be smart about our workload, we might be taking on more things from other people or our bosses that actually is not necessarily ours, or we might be offering some advice or feedback without the person actually asking for it or needing it. So this is what it means to take responsibility for others. So I want you guys to again just pause and have a think in terms of the external as well as the internal patterns and triggers. What is your profile? What's that kind of the imprint that you're working with right now, which is completely changeable, by the way, absolutely changeable. But this is kind of like the car that you're driving right now. So write down perhaps the patterns, identify them, have a think about this. What is your current reality? What is the stuff that you really need to unpack and perhaps shift? Oh my God, I'm going next to this really beautiful, it's like a canyon with a river. You probably can't see the river, but yeah. This is what I love. This is what I love about the nature and just being on the move. It's just being in constant awe and appreciation of what's going on around me, and there's so much inspiration that we take from nature. And speaking of this, this is a perfect segue going into our third framework, which is flow and the art of flowing. So, yum, water is good. It's good for you. I might even touch on that one in a little bit, but when it comes to flow, flow is such a popular topic. It's this beautiful state where we completely lose ourselves in the moment, when we're one with the activity and everything else disappears, and where we're in this absolute state of high performance. We are feeling fulfilled, we're feeling happier, things are simply flowing, right? It's usually associated with high performing athletes or artists. And recently we have been studying flow in the context of the workplace, because why couldn't we experience flow as well, in our day-to-day? And this is the reason why I'm talking about the nature and changing the environment. This is the reason why I'm also talking about the water and really understanding our bodies, because what flow is about, it really is about understanding ourselves as human beings, about our potential, about our energy, about everything that we're capable of. And a lot of the topics that we also study and we have in our program in terms of biohacking, looking at our cycles, looking at nutrition, looking at hormones, all of this stuff really plugs into the concept of flow. So what I want to share with you guys today is very relevant to stress and burnout, and how you can optimize your behavior once you're looking at these cycles and really looking for reasons why things might be stressful for you. This is the formula that you are aspiring towards. Flow is really where it's at. So let me just take you through the 4 stages of flow that will really explain why this is such a powerful concept. And I also want to touch on the reason why most people never flow and what are the common pitfalls when it comes to being able to flow. So flow has 4 stages. The stages are struggle, release, flow, and recovery. So as you can see, the actual flow is just one of those 4 stages. And the reason is because to get into a state of flow, we actually need to do certain things before. And those things sometimes might feel a little bit counterintuitive. So let me just walk you through the phases. Every single time you get a challenging task in front of you, you enter the struggle phase. The struggle phase is all about really turning on our brain and our problem-solving capacity, our body releasing cortisol and adrenaline. We're in that state of like, oh, there's a challenge. There is that lion standing in front of me. What am I going to do? We should definitely stay in this stage of struggle and, allow our body to really get to the point of like trying to connect the dots and figure out what to do and use our capacity for it. However, after the struggle phase, what needs to happen is that we release, that we either take a break, we play, we allow our body to change its chemistry and to flush out the cortisol and the adrenaline from our body. If we do not do that, we never access flow. So that's a hint when it comes to the pitfalls. What needs to happen is that we allow our mind to go from the 100% focus into a diffuse state, to allow ourselves for some lateral thinking, to allow our body to relax. And when that happens, we get to the flow state, which is almost like a trance state, when things suddenly click and connect. So sometimes the release can just literally look like taking a shower. It can just be a short walk. It can be taking a few breaths and just completely disconnecting from the problem at hand. And then that's when suddenly things click. I'm sure you have experienced this before. And so then we enter the magical flow state, right? And what happens in flow is just something that's almost kind of difficult to explain. It's a state, when people study flow, they actually find a very similar chemical reaction in our brain to monks who would meditate for a long time when they're in this kind of like state of trance. It's almost transcendental. And it's the hormones that are being released by our bodies are also found in cannabis as well. So it's just really putting us at this like state of absolute high performance, but also an utter ease. And it releases hormones that have to do with fulfillment, with happiness, with enjoyment. It's just this really feel-good state. It's beautiful, right? So that's flow, and I'm sure you have experienced flow in your life before. In order to maintain the flow ability, what we have to do next is that we recover. We use some time and space to allow our body to go from this crazy high performance state and this cycle of struggle, release and flow to allow ourselves to really just replenish our bodies and to allow our hormones to get to a state of balance again. And this is, very related to talking about the burnout cycle that I talked about at the beginning when it comes to those stages. Because if you do not finish the flow cycle completely and allow yourself a recovery, you're not only going to be drained and you're not going to be feeling replenished. And it's really tempting not to recover because we just were in this high state of flow and we're like, oh my God, I want to keep experiencing this. Let's go into the next task. I'm going to struggle again and then I will flow again. But what happens is if we don't allow ourselves a proper recovery, the quality, the intensity, and the duration of our flow is going to shorten. And it's going to get to the point that we will never experience flow again. So it's essential that we do spend time in recovery. So this is where I wanted to talk about the common pitfalls, because what happens with most people is that it's simply because there is so much going on externally, as well as, our inner mind is telling us, hey, there is so much going on. We do not allow ourselves to both release and also recover. And so this is the reason why many people are asking, hey, how do I get into flow? I kind of experienced it when I was younger and playing a game, but how do I get into flow while working? Well, this is how, and it's all about working with your mind as well as working with your habits to be able to shift the way that you navigate your energy right now. So that's it, guys. I am going to show you the outside in a little bit again, but I just want to finish this video because there is so much beauty going on around me. I just want to finish this video by saying that a sip of water is always nice. Yes, the thing I was going to mention actually about water. So, you know, you can find this everywhere on the internet. Drinking regime is so important. There are literally substances that can help you to access flow easier, and to also substances that can also kind of make you burn out much easier. And I have been studying caffeine and coffee for a really long time. Okay, now we're full on mountains, so I have to show you this. Super, super beautiful. How good is that? So coffee and caffeine is something that is so widespread, right? And we literally associate coffee with high performance. It gives us that kick. It gives us that feeling of like, hey, I'm in this like sense of high. But caffeine actually is, if you are already in stages of, if you're already in onset of stress or any kind of stages where you're perceiving stress as a negative, drinking caffeine is going to exaggerate that, because caffeine increases our cortisol levels and our adrenaline levels in the body. So if you love coffee, like I do too, you know, you have to be really careful with how much caffeine do you allow your body to accumulate, and perhaps have a look at some alternatives like adaptogenics. You know, there are some medicinal mushrooms which are really powerful, maybe ginseng and other really interesting plants out there. And drinking lots of water, it's super, super important. So reach out to me, talk to me about these things, or anyone else from our team. This is our absolute jam. This is what we do. All right, so the last thing I want to say is that these are the frameworks, and you know, it's important to have this awareness, and I'm so glad that I was able to share this lesson with you today. What I want to leave with you is that it all very much depends on how well are we able to apply these things in practice, because you can read so many books, you can listen to so many people talking about these things, and you know, you probably already know these things inside you, within you. You know what's the right thing to do. But the question is, are you doing it? And so what we experience, what we notice with our clients the most is that the places where people get usually stuck are with their emotional parts that are preventing them from acting differently. There is literally a story that we're running in our heads that's preventing us from take that leap, and you know, we then make lots of different reasons why we can't. And the second thing is our behavioral patterns. It's really hard to actually start managing stress, as funny as that sounds, but that's a new skill. It's a new habit. You're exercising a new muscle, and just like learning anything else that's new, it requires a process, and it requires repetition, and it requires a certain approach and a commitment and some time. But what I can tell you when it comes to time, it's actually the 10 to 15 minutes per day that you spend on these things. That is going to replace the amount of stress and tension and mental overwhelm that stress is causing you right now, when it's probably even paralyzing you. It's something that's just, you know, it's a total no-brainer. It's something that's completely just unthinkable when it comes to like the value of this. So the amount of time we invest into these things, once it becomes your routine, it's incomparable with what it's going to save you, what it's going to actually help you with. Okay, so I just want to share with you a couple of success stories, because one of the things that we are really proud of and we love doing is to actually get people tangible results, and just to kind of draw that picture for you to see, you know, what is the effect of this work that you can expect. It literally just takes a few months. It takes us between 30 to 60 days to start changing a habit. And so we have seen results with people within 30 days when they have substantially shifted how they feel and the results that they have seen around them as well. So a senior consultant that I worked with went from feeling chronic stress daily and having headaches and heart palpitations to saying that we saved his life and career and happiness, which is beautiful. A head of strategy went from shifting from feeling frustrated and undervalued and paralyzed to creating an executive role which was rich with meaning. She literally created a role for herself. This was at the R&B Bank, which is one of South Africa's largest banks. A leader at Hubspot went from being almost fired due to burnout to being promoted twice in 12 months. And a hedge fund founder went from feeling drained and frustrated with himself and his team to feeling energized by his work and his mission again. And after that, he actually brought his entire team to work with us, which, you know, we have absolutely loved. So if you're in a place of needing support and you want a positive change in life, please do reach out to us. Over 85% of the people that we worked with have already achieved significant raises and promotions. And so this is something that we can almost guarantee that is going to happen in your life. It's, you know, these frameworks that we work with, they work. They are completely tailored to be precisely solving the issues of burnout, to solve issues of chronic stress, and to be helping leaders to get from the point of stuckness to where you really want to be, to where your potential really is. So most of our clients' training also is subsidized by their businesses, or at least partially subsidized by their companies. And I also want to say that we offer payment plans and, you know, lots of flexibility when it comes to timings, because we know that you guys are busy, and this is exactly something that we're solving together to make sure that no one gets left behind. And we want to make sure that there is nothing standing in your way when it comes to reaching your goals and doing it without burnout and doing it without stress. So that's it from me, guys, and I want to thank you for watching. Please book your call with us. I'm going to share the link here, and also you can just go to our website inu.io, where you will be able to find that button to click a discovery call. It's been a pleasure. Thanks again for watching. Lots of love, and I wish you good luck, and I can't wait to meet you and to chat to you. I'm at the end of my journey. One more stop and I'm out. So just a little bit of gray skies from Slovakia on my way to Bali tomorrow. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.